The story begins with a magician-looking woman uttering some ancient language in some kind of portal, knowing that that spot that she is in is nothing but the most powerful magical spot, and she ends up sacrificing the most powerful wand that she had in the sacrificial summoning. Somewhere else, a man wearing an office suit in the middle of his house ends up waking up in front of the door of his house, and he notices that the door of his house is somehow open for some reason. Then, when he notices that his house is in the middle of a forest, he ends up shocking himself as he just left the house. He even looks back to check if he is right, and even though he was just at his house, he notices that the sky is filled with dragons and mythical beasts. He realizes that he might have woken up inside of another world and starts wondering if he is really seeing whatever he is seeing in front of him. He remembers that he got off from his workplace to have fun with his co-workers, but it felt really boring for him. The moment he got back at home, he instantly passed out as if he really had no energy in him. The immense pressure of the things that he sees starts to make him feel like he surely needs more sleep, and his head is hurting almost unfearingly. Then someone starts shouting outside of his house, asking if the person in front of that entity might be the devil or some kind of other almighty being. The person starts shouting that it is dangerous and thinks that she might not be able to defeat the person in front of her. The protagonist starts to wonder who the hell is shouting that loudly outside of his house and starts looking outside of his house. Then as he looks outside, he notices that there are a lot of beautiful women wearing magician clothes as if they are preparing for cosplay or something. As the leader of the squad continues to rush towards someone while gaining her strength, the protagonist takes his breath only to shout at her, saying that they will need to shut up since he is about to have some sleep this early in the morning. The moment he starts shouting toward them, the women fly back a few yards almost instantly, which feels quite unbelievable to him as well. When he stands in front of the women, the leader of the squad, the so-called princess, starts fearing for their life as she can see that he has some immense strength to throw them all away by using his voice. As the protagonist starts walking toward them, the others continue to suggest the princess to get back in her position, but her legs continue to shake as she couldn't shake the fear off of her. She even ends up peeing herself in front of him as he continues to walk to reach her, and the princess claims that she is heavily sorry for disturbing someone like him. The protagonist thinks that he is seeing some kind of clownery, as there is no way someone would pee herself only by getting shouted at. Then the protagonist claims that he just wanted to scare her away, and he didn't even know that it was about to happen in some way. Then he starts to grab her hat, asking where they are, and she is surprised that she doesn't even know that his house is right in the middle of the most powerful magic spot. Then she claims that he would better take a look at himself, as that is the reason why even his shout is so powerful to throw someone like her. When everyone continues to call for the princess, and the protagonist continues to wonder what must be magic even in the first place, while the princess feels like she will need to run away from him as soon as possible. Suddenly, she uses some kind of magic such as emergency teleportation and ends up flying and disappearing away to somewhere, while he continues to wonder where they went to. As he continues to think about what he had done, he realizes that he truly must be in another world, which feels quite amazing to him, as he had never wondered something like this would even be possible. As he thinks about the future, some beautiful woman calls him a master, and it makes him wonder who the person inside of his house must be. Even though someone seems to be trying to speak with him, the protagonist doesn't seem to hear or see her, and he continues to wonder how come he is about to survive in this world that he knows nothing about and doesn't even know how he is about to learn the survival skills. Realizing that he will need to check out something, he ends up rushing into the house, and the girl inside slides away from him as he runs inside. He notices that the stored food inside of his house is still there, and he even has all of his clothes inside of the wardrobe. He also has his same old bed which he has been living with for over 10 years for now, and he thinks that he must not be surprised that the things that he has in the house haven't changed even a bit. He starts to feel like he is about to get sleepy once again and proceeds to take off his jacket to fall down on the bed. He reminisces that the house he is in has been his house for over 60 years, even for the family. As he feels secure inside his home, he feels like he will be able to sleep peacefully right now. But damn, the guy is quite wrong, as he feels like the same squad of pipsqueak girls are now shouting once again, and he wonders what must be happening outside of his house right now. People are shouting, saying that they need to run away, as some kind of huge dragon is chasing the same squad once again. It seems that the stupid leader of the squad, the princess, ends up teleporting into the dragon nest as the emergency exit, and now the dragon is chasing them all. The princess realizes that the protagonist is once again shouting, and she thinks that the magic that she has left on her might not be able to take it down, so she will need to guide it from the city away somewhere inside the forest. The girls around her start saying that they will try to distract the enemy, but she thinks that they will not be able to run away, since they are about to come in front of the house soon enough while the huge dragon is chasing them down like a hound. Realizing that there is no way she will be able to forsake her own people for her own life, she stands in front of the dragon as she is about to lead the army of her, and not run away from some kind of battle. While the others start suggesting the princess to run away, she begins shielding her people as the dragon starts releasing some kind of fire breath against them to take them down. As the dragon continues to lead a heavy fire against them, her people suggest that she should leave them, but no matter what, the princess is not able to leave her people. At that moment, the protagonist gets mad even more at them for making some kind of ruckus to prevent him from sleeping. Then when he finally comes out of the door and shouts saying that he already told them to let him sleep, some kind of tornado creates out of nowhere from his voice. Even though the princess and her people try their best way to move away from the disaster, they end up getting caught in the middle, including the dragon, and start pissing themselves out of nowhere like hell. As their clothes are also ruined, the dragon drops down from the sky and the girls fall down on the stomach of the dragon like they are all some kind of flies. In the end, as they are on the ground, the protagonist couldn't help but wonder how his voice ended up making such a scene and starts rushing toward them asking if they are all okay or not. The princess starts to feel immense pressure as she notices that he is coming right at them and might take their life. She starts to cry and pee in the garden, which the protagonist starts worrying about. Then he claims that he is sorry to make them piss by shouting at them, and the princess starts to wonder how he is about to punish them now since the dragon is already defeated. She thinks that he will better take her life and leave all of the others since she is their leader, and he clears up that he doesn't know what she is even talking about since he doesn't want to take their life. He suggests that he will do them no harm, and they will just have to take the dragon away. The idea of taking the dragon away feels kind of surprising to them, as the princess clears that there is no way someone is able to defeat something like that without a party of at least 10 skilled adventurers, and since its heart is more valuable than any gem found in the world, how will he end up forgetting it, as if he wants to leave his treasure for them? He claims that he will have no need for the entity, so they can take it away and leave him to sleep peacefully as he is having a bad hangover, which is turning into a big headache for him from time to time. The princess senses that the man doesn't have any ulterior motive and thinks that she will have some magic to float the dragon over her head. While carrying the dragon over her head, she adds that her name is Daniela Prussia Medicine, who is Prussia country's second princess. She claims that she will soon repay his debt and adds that he will want to keep on remembering her name. As she runs away with the dragon, the protagonist feels like he is about to fall asleep very soon and ends up entering his house, thinking that he will finally find peace in sleeping in silence right now. But the moment he ends up falling asleep inside his house, he feels like he is sleeping in someone else's lap as the person is calling him sir over and over again. She claims that she has already prepared lunch for him and suggests that he should wake up. The moment he wakes up, he realizes that he has been sleeping on someone's lap, and he starts asking about her identity as there is no way he knows her. The girl adds that she has already prepared lunch for him, and he thinks that he might have forgotten to lock the door earlier, but no, the girl claims that the lock was closed, and there is no way anyone will be able to open it except for him. Then he feels like it makes it sound more invalid for him that someone like her is here, and starts asking about her identity. She thinks that it will be a great time for her to introduce to himself and claims that she is Sakura, and she is the spirit of the house. According to her, she had been spending her life inside the house, and this was the final time she was able to meet him. She seems quite thankful for the family that had been taking care of her, and she adds that this whole time she was quite embarrassed to meet him, so she decided to keep herself hidden from him. Then he asks how she ended up getting the name and starts thinking on his own that Sakura surely is related to cherry blossoms. He remembers that the main pillar of the house was made from a cherry tree, and she seems quite glad for the fact that he is able to remember something crucial as that. The protagonist gladly states that his grandfather was the one who told him about it, and he suggested that it is quite rare for someone to use cherry trees for housing purposes. From that time, he knew that his house was special, and now realizes that he must be in a different world since the house turned into such a special and beautiful-looking girl. At that instant, she realized that he must be famished and started serving him some good food so he could replenish his energy soon enough. The idea of having a homemade meal starts rushing excitement through his veins, as it has been a long time since he had a homemade meal for himself. When it comes to the electricity for the fridge, it seems that Sakura is able to generate electricity for the house, and she has already tapped into the groundwater under here, so the faucet and shower will certainly work for him. The idea of magic working well starts to surprise him even more, and Sakura suggests him that he should be eating the food before it gets cold. As he finishes the food, he thanks Sakura for making such amazing food, and he starts asking her how the house ended up getting summoned with him. According to her, the house and he both were in a magic spot for a long time, so they absorbed a lot of magic in the first place. He remembers that the princess that he met twice in a row said the same thing to him, and now the power exists in Sakura and him both. She adds that he had been living in the dragon vein since he was born, and for that reason alone, he is also filled to the brim with magical powers. He thinks that her words surely make sense since he could notice what would happen if he shouted, but Sakura claims that it is only a fraction of what he is able to do. She thinks that he will be able to do a lot of things if he starts practicing magic at the same time. The topic of practicing magic makes him suggest that they need to get outside for that, since the house will surely get damaged when they start practicing inside the house. Sakura thanks the protagonist for thinking about her, and the moment they get outside, the protagonist is surprised that he can do this much by using his strength. Then when it comes to practicing magic, he thinks that they need to take care of food in the beginning since they are in a new place, so they must think about food. Sakura thinks that she will be able to make her powers useful to make food, and starts serving him an apple out of nowhere. She suggests that they will be able to make an apple orchard with the seeds in the apple, and the whole wasteland will be able to become green at the same time. When the protagonist thinks that it will be taking a lot of time to grow trees, Sakura suggests that they can use their magic to grow the trees as well. She thinks that she will be useful as a medium for him to learn magic, as it will be a beginning for him to use magical powers, adding that he will be able to use her body to grow the magic trees. Then the moment he looks at her chest, he starts to blush truly hard, not being able to realize that he will be able to touch elsewhere to produce magic as well. Then the moment he ends up touching her head, she starts to make some weird uncanny sound, and the moment he looks at her face, he gets even more nervous. After seeing the protagonist nervous, she claims that he needs to think about the trees growing, and she will be able to adjust her power that moment. As he uses his magic to see the tree growing, she starts transferring her magic in a lewd way, feeling that the magic is quite overwhelming. The tree ends up sprouting, and she starts to feel quite warm because of it. And when the protagonist asks her about it, she claims that he is not tired, and she is quite surprised that it ended up happening this fast. She suggests him to continue with the process as she is acting as a medium for the magic transferring process, and Sakura even realizes that the power that is needed to make the tree grow is quite less than what he is throwing inside of her. She thinks that this kind of power might be uncontrollable for her to hold on to, and soon enough the tree grows and ends up turning into a huge one. The power flowing through her makes her feel like she is having some kind of intercourse, might be the best one in her life, and even the fruits start to grow. The protagonist is surprised that he will be able to see the fruits growing anytime soon, and while he is taking a look at the fruits, he notices that Sakura is already tired and lying down on the ground. She claims that he has already made use of his magic by getting used to it, and takes an apple to let him eat the fruit that he ended up growing on his own with his own labor. The protagonist then takes a bite, saying that they made the fruits by working together, which makes her blush. One bite from the fruit makes him realize how fresh and sweet the apple is, and realizes that it must have been the correct way to use magic. After that, she thinks that they need to take their time to make an orchard by doing the same thing over and over. Suddenly, a dragon starts to fly over his head, and the dragon ends up taking away Sakura from his sight, as if it was targeting her for a while. On the other hand, the princess is tired of carrying a bag of silver coins, and thinks that it is good that she was able to sell the dragon for a high price of over 3,000 silvers. But now she is taking her time to deliver an amount of the prize to the man who has defeated the dragon on his own, and thinks that it will be useful for her not to send any one of her soldiers to take the prize in that dangerous place, not knowing what will happen to them. But she is quite sad that she will have to keep carrying the huge bag since she is quite low in magical powers, and at that time she notices that a huge great dragon is flying over her head, which has rainbow-colored scale with a small body, making it countable for its name. As she takes a note of the dragon, she thinks that the dragon is rarely seen by humans in the first place, which typically means that the dragon is attracted by some kind of magical spot for sure. At that moment, she notices that someone is calling the name of Sakura, and the protagonist is trying his best to think that there is no way he would be able to lose Sakura, meaning that he will be failing as a homeowner for sure if that ends up happening, and continues to try his best to protect her. He thinks of using magic to save Sakura, and he thinks that it will be needed to make it more accurate, so he will be able to pinpoint her location, but there is no way he will be letting his magic to hit her. He starts wondering if he will be able to use his magic without her, but he starts to try to see if he will be able to form some kind of image inside his head just like her. Soon he releases the power of extending the tree, which ends up hitting the dragon as the land continues to blow up on its own. He realizes that he will be able to use magic on his own, and the dragon ends up releasing Sakura. Sensing that Sakura will be falling soon enough, he tries his best to extend the tree against the dragon and ends up falling down Sakura as she drops down on the ground. When he finally is acting as a foam under her body, he ends up grabbing her chest as if he is holding them as some kind of steering as she moans instantly. But by realizing that he has made a mistake by doing that, he starts saying sorry to her as he was just trying to catch her. Even though she is quite embarrassed, she starts thanking him knowing that he didn't have any bad intentions. But soon enough, the dragon keeps on chasing him once again, as if it wants him to have some payback. It seems that the dragon is trying to make his spot his new magical home. But the moment the protagonist thinks of using his power, he feels like he is quite hungry. Sakura realizes that he must have been using a lot of powers to grow the magic apples, and she suggests that the dragon meat will be delicious for him, which makes the protagonist wonder how she is able to say something like that by making a cute face. After thinking for a while, he thinks that the dragon is in a different color, but it must not be poisonous, knowing that it is too much for them to eat alone, and no matter how many times he thinks that he wouldn't kill it, he suggests that he needs to kill it as it attacked him. He makes up his mind saying that he will be eating the dragon soon enough, and he knows that he doesn't have to be careful while dealing a blow because Sakura isn't with the dragon anymore. He ends up shouting at the dragon saying that he wants to eat meat toward the dragon, which ends up dealing a huge blow to it. Even though the magic touched the dragon for a bit, it starts to fly away knowing that it needs to protect itself. When he feels that it will be troublesome if the dragon attacks someone else, Sakura suggests that using mental magic is quite important, so he cannot shout but also focus his magic. He thinks of trying his magic again after listening to her, knowing that he needs to take down the dragon anyhow. As he deals the next blow at the dragon, the whole magic ends up blasting the dragon in the worst possible way. The blow not only hits the dragon, but also the princess who had been trying to reach the protagonist this whole time. She once again gets blown away by him, even though her clothes are ripped apart like the last time. As the dragon hunt is complete, the protagonist thinks that he made a great achievement this time and senses that focusing the magic ends up doing some great things. When it comes to taking care of the dragon, she claims that he will be able to leave it to her as magic makes it easy to make in the first place. She starts presenting the rainbow dragon steak for him, and he starts munching down on the monster meat. She even made a magic-powered cold storage which will be able to hold meat for his eating habits, which is near the apple orchard. The protagonist feels like Sakura is able to do anything, but Sakura thinks that he will be the one who should be credited the most since he is the one who saved her. The protagonist thinks that he needs to take care of being self-sufficient in another world, and then when the scene shifts to where the princess is, she seems to be waking up from her unconsciousness. She thinks that it must have been his magic once again, and as he holds down her skirt while peeing, she feels like she must come back later as she is as clumsy as ever. Then the protagonist continues to keep on with his apple farming. As the trees continue to grow, Sakura keeps on motivating him as he is easily getting the hang of it. He thinks that it is surely easy to grow apple trees with magic, and he thinks of the next lesson. Sakura claims that she will be able to guide him for the first time, and suggests that he needs to touch her and give her his magic, and it starts looking quite erotic to him as Sakura lies ahead to the tree to reveal her butt toward him. As Sakura is ready, the protagonist gets ready to shove his bottom toward her ass, and the moment the magic hits, it ends up growing into a huge circle tree-like being. Even though the protagonist doesn't seem quite satisfied looking at the creature it had turned into, Sakura claims that the entity turned into a golem after all, and the golem will continue to pluck apple on its own, and the use of magic keeps on surprising the protagonist. Suddenly, Sakura notices that some people are rushing toward them, and they do not look human after all. As Sakura starts to call for the protagonist while he plays with the golem, Sakura says that he will need to become one with her right now, while making a lewd face which ends up troubling him in a suspicious way. He couldn't help but wonder what she is even talking about right now. He suddenly feels like it might be quite hot out there, and as he knows that it will be happening right now, he thanks Sakura while shivering on his own. As he stands in front of Sakura, she starts telling him to close his eyes, and when they do, he feels like that they might be too close to each other right now. The idea of them being too close to each other starts making him feel insane. He feels that the boundary between them might have been lost in the process, and he can even hear everything including her breathing and beating heart at the same time. As she is quite warm to him, he feels like the sensation of having her close to himself will get him addicted soon enough. As she calls him close to her, he finds himself in a huge new space, and he starts to wonder where they might be, as Sakura explains that it is the bird's eye view of the house. Sakura adds that with the power, he will be able to see whatever she is able to see, and he knew that she was able to do that since she is a spirit after all. But the idea of being together like this starts to make him feel nervous as he thinks that he is missing out on the right prize. She then adds that some monsters, about up to 65 of them, are trying to get into the premises of the house as they are trying to break it apart, which is why she synchronized with him since she noticed their presence a long time ago. One of the monsters, named Galu-Garu, seems to be amazed with the magical presence of the place, and he thinks that the house will be a perfect home for their wolf clan that stands at the top of the forest for the time being. As all of the units are in the same place, they keep on charging in the direction of the house while gathering up, and it seems that they have also fought in the last city they have destroyed to win against the others. The whole clan thinks of feasting after the invasion is done, so all of them get ready to charge against the house that is in their targeted location. Soon as the units start to move out all at once, the protagonist focuses on all of them, as he already knows that they have been targeting the house all at once, but he promises himself that he will not allow anyone or any enemy to break into his territory. He thinks that they will be welcome to try, but there is no way they will be finding their ending too well for the matter of fact for sure, while banging his fist against his other hand. All of the wolf army gets the same message from their lord. It is that they will have to charge in and destroy their enemy at the same time. The leader claims that their elite strike teams will quickly dispatch against the enemies with their telepathic communication. Their teamwork will be flawless against the target they are trying to achieve right now. He thinks that they might as well kill themselves right now in fear, and as the wolves start to get together to attack their enemy, they start to show up in the radar, which the protagonist and Sakura are now using with the help of their combined strength. The protagonist thinks that they might be too close to their location, and everyone around them is aiming for the same place, which is their house. He counts that the number is about 65 of them, and he starts to wonder if it will be possible for him to beat all of them at once. Then Sakura calls out to him saying that he needs to use her soon enough, as they are quite in sync, so putting her into magic will be able to let her create traps at once. The idea of being able to do that in synchronization starts to get out protagonist some ideas, and as he starts to hold Sakura, he claims that he will be counting on her from now on, as the monster continues to charge against them, and they even end up reaching the apple trees for the time being. Suddenly, they find out that the trees are moving, and soon they turn into golem as the protagonist starts transfusing their magic into one body. As more of the golems rise in the location for the time, the wolves continue to scatter around, feeling that they are surely in trouble right now. They cannot help but wonder what is happening, and the golems charge against them, and as the golems continue to rise like huge multiplicated trees, they are able to guess how much magic the man is using behind the golems right now. Even though they think that it must be some kind of illusion, they start speaking into the telepathy magic, so they are able to contact their leader. The leader starts to wonder if the golems have risen against every unit of his team, and he starts charging against the golems with his sword. As he will not allow any kind of intruders in his territory, the protagonist starts charging against the wolves, and they keep on flying away from the place as they get blown away from the ground with the help of the golems. All of the golems act at once to blow the hell out of the wolves at once, and Sakura praises her master for making such a brave scene in front of her, adding that he is quite well at controlling the golems. The protagonist adds that they were working as perfect traps for the battle and feels hungry once again as he has used a lot of his magic at once. Sakura remembers that he didn't eat anything since the morning and suggests that she will make lunch for him. But as they get on walking into the house to prepare lunch, the golems start to become a concern for the nearby towns as they continue to start panicking. When the protagonist gets on with wandering around the place around his house and notices that the whole place is covered with trees and rocks, and as he notices various monsters around the place, he reminds himself that it has already been a week for him in this new world. He remembers how he would have to leave his house around 6 a.m. to reach his workplace, and he would always catch a train to get there after a hardcore session of bike ride. But he now feels like he is getting used to in the life of this world. The moment he gets back to his house, Sakura invites him and lets him know that she is already worried about the monsters trying to infiltrate the house's area. He thinks that he should be forgetting about the comfort of his life and thinks that he is still not used to the trespassers around the house who are always getting ready to attack his house. Then he once again touches Sakura to check up on the area, and even though the enemies kind of look familiar to him, he thinks that there might be some kind of difference in the monsters. He looks that the enemies aren't ready and dressed for combat and notices how there are only a fewer amount of them, but in case they prepare for some kind of hostility, he ends up prepping the traps for safety. Then when the monsters face them, he starts asking about their intentions in front of his house, and the monsters start talking about how they could feel like the protagonist is their new king who had been showing them his powers. The army of the wolves instantly kneels down in front of him, saying that they are the family of wolves who had been ruling the forest, but now they have accepted him as the king of the forest. The chief of the family, Garo, claims that he is now surrounding him while revealing his sister from her clothes, saying that he is ready to give him as an offering. The wolf girl looks rather scared, and as she is naked, she claims that he will be able to use her to satisfy his appetite, while adding that the protagonist will be able to eat her. But the protagonist is rather confused and embarrassed on what is happening in front of him. But he is rather confused about the girl who looks half human and half beast. The idea of eating her sounds rather confusing to him, and Garo states that he will be sacrificing himself to fill his appetite if needed, as they have a lot of magical powers, so it will be useful for the protagonist to use them. Garo yells, saying that if they sacrifice for the rest of his people, it will be fine for them, as they will be able to save their race like that. The protagonist seems mesmerized that they would have that kind of magical power, but the idea of eating her sounds absurd to him, and he gets mad instantly. When Garo doesn't understand what he means, the protagonist claims that he has been misunderstanding him, since he has no intention of being the king or to eat his sister in the first place, since he just wants to live in peace. The idea of him living in peace starts to make them feel like they are about to get forgiven by him, even though they have attacked them. But Garo insists that they have lost and surrendered, so it is in their will that they will have to sacrifice for his victor, and he will be able to do anything with them. The idea of ordering them gives him a different idea, and the protagonist states that they will have to put an end to attacking others, since it feels like a bother to him. The generosity brings tears to Garo's eyes as he notices that the protagonist even respects his sister by making her wear her clothing once again. As the siblings hug, the protagonist remarks that they might be wolves, but they are still people, and he hopes that they will be able to leave and prosper finally from there. But Garo insists that he must be their king, or at least accept their offering for betterment. Garo then shows him carts full of foods and items which they had stored in their warehouses, and even though the offer feels quite tempting for the protagonist, he takes only a bit of them and suggests they should take back the rest of them for their family. The idea of him taking them into consideration makes them feel weird, and the protagonist states that there is no reason he would be taking much, as he only has another person except for him in his household. Then Garo feels like it might be normal for the king to think about his people, as they all salute him for his generosity, and then start to excuse themselves from the protagonist. Then the protagonist finally feels like he is in peace, and now he will be able to get back home, as they were quite loud in the first place. At the same time, Sakura claims that she will start making dinner for him by using vegetables and meat to cook stew for him. Realizing that it is his favorite food, the protagonist feels like he is about to have variety in food after a long time. On the other hand, in the Prussia kingdom, the princess once again starts gathering the bag of coins for the protagonist, since she failed to get him his share of the money that day. At the same time, the protagonist and Sakura start wandering around places to look at the outside world to observe it more from there. After a while, the protagonist ends up coming in front of a tree filled with golden apples. He starts to wonder if they are edible or not, and Sakura ends up finding another one in front of her and thinks that they must be edible after it. They find that the fruit is quite better than the original apples, but they soon realize that there must be something different about the fruits, while they start feeling like their body is getting hot all of a sudden. As something starts happening inside of their bodies, a wave of sexual desire starts rolling inside of their bodies, and at that instant, the protagonist starts speaking with Sakura as he wants to express his feelings to her. But before he is about to say something to her, the dragons above his head start speaking about something, and it seems that the protagonist can easily hear them talk, as if he now knows how to communicate with the dragons. At the same time, Sakura can hear the dragons as well, and after smelling for a while, she realizes that the fruits must be filled with dragon magic, and the reason why they can hear it is because they ended up eating the dragon magical apples. Then Sakura gets the idea of the dragon they have defeated, and it seems that the dragon that they killed before to save Sakura was lying in the last spot where the trees are right now, which is why his blood might have got mixed with the tree sprouts. The idea gets the protagonist to think that he will be able to get some kind of other skills by using the variety of monster's blood. Now, before they are about to do anything with their time, they soon hear some kind of explosion, and it seems that the golem is holding the princess out of nowhere. As the golem is now holding the princess explicitly, she is standing in front of the protagonist, and she is slowly peeing through her panties. The idea of seeing someone like her angers the protagonist. and he starts to get mad for the reason that she is making such a mess out of his garden for no reason by peeing here and there over and over. Then the protagonist states that she is sorry, but she had to come to him for a good reason, and she is ready to pay what she owes him. The princess confronts him, reminding him that she is Daniela, and she is really not a witch princess, and when the protagonist starts asking her about what she came here for, she realizes that she ended up dropping the bags when they grabbed her out of nowhere. She once again runs to gather the bag and thanks him for defeating the dragon before, and starts showing him the bag of 3,000 silver coins, which is about 3 million gold pieces. After a long time, the protagonist understands the currency of the country and thinks that it will be enough for him to live off for an entire year without even working a bit. She feels like he didn't need to use the golem against her, and Sakura gets a confusing side of the matter happening in front of her. Then she claims that she already wanted to get back to him since he was the one who defeated the dragon for her, and it makes the protagonist feel like she must be pretty conscientious after all, and she thinks that it must be her only feminine feature, and she includes that she has a great specialty in magic which ended up becoming useless last time. All of a sudden, when the dragons start to rush over their head, the protagonist can hear that the dragons are talking about him eating a dragon, but the other one continues to speak about how the protagonist is quite small and frail. The dragons start to bicker about how profitable it will be for them to beat the protagonist, as he is necessary to be filled with magical powers, and the protagonist suggests to the princess that the dragons are now trying to eat them at once, him especially. As multiple dragons gather in front of him, the protagonist starts to wonder if they will be able to defeat him, and the princess starts peeing once again that there are too many of the dragons and it must be over for them for sure. The protagonist is surprised that a lot of the dragons have already surrounded, and he starts to wonder what is happening for the moment. He thinks that the princess must be cursed, otherwise there is no way there would always be dragons attacking them whenever she comes around the house. The joke made by him starts to make her cry, and he confirms that they must be ready to attack them at any moment, and she starts to feel like she is about to die soon enough. As the dragons decide who is about to attack them first, one of them starts to rush toward them, and as the dragon is about to attack them, the princess thinks that she must be the one to take on the first attack since she needs to be some use of them. But there is no way she will be able to defeat so many of them, and as the monster is already too close to her, she blasts the monster with heavy firepower named Flame Lance to burn the monster to the ground. As soon as the monster blasts into the sky along with the others, she thinks that she must have defeated at least one of them. But no, it seems that the monster is fine, and he is ready to attack them once again while making a huge scary face. Realizing that nothing happened to the dragon, she senses that there is no way the dragons must be ordinary ones, and the idea of them surrounding the place starts to make her feel like she is about to die for sure. The dragons start to discuss how they thought that they must be weak, and noticing that the protagonist didn't even attack them in the beginning, gives them a huge hope that they are surely about to win for their next one, and will be able to defeat the man in front of them. Deciding that the humans are fucked, the dragons start to cheer, and the protagonist senses that there must be a huge trouble, as they are attacking at once at the same time. He instantly gets in front of the princess and claims that he will be the one to take care of it, but the girl insists that she will still be able to do it as she will not let him to fight alone on his own. But she suggests him that he will need to hit her on the butt before that, as the old mentor of hers would always do the same thing if she couldn't gather enough strength on her own. The idea of gathering magic by hitting on the butt feels absurd to the protagonist, but as he notices that the dragons are about to attack them, he ends up doing it desperately and states that she will not be able to protest if it ends up hurting her in the first place. The moment her butt gets hit, she feels like it is about to work right now and hopes that she will be able to finish it off right now. The idea of her butt now feeling hot makes her feel like it doesn't even hurt her, but as if her butt is flowing with magical power and love. As the dragons start to form some sort of firepower while acting at the same time as they worry that they won't be able to eat them if they end up dying, and the princess hopes for the best out of her and thinks that the power inside of her will be able to defeat the dragons in front of her. Then while she hopes for the best outcome of the day, she starts rising her powers to flow against the dragons, and as the power starts to dissolve the dragon fire, they feel like they are about to see the sun right now as they start to get vanished in the high power of the princess, as she looks like she is having some kind of orgasm right now. As soon as the fire breath settles down between the dragons, they start to see that one of them has vanished in the thin air as if he was fried by the sun and dropped down on the ground. Even the princess herself is quite shocked, and the dragons are now shocked that one of them has lost his life and thinks that they have done a mistake by coming into this place according to the king's information. When the princess is surprised, she continues to wonder how she ended up making such a legendary class magic in the first place, and the protagonist starts to wonder what is happening with her this time again. She thinks that it must be the protagonist's hand that helped her to achieve this, but as the magic power settles down inside her, she plops down on the ground. When she notices how the protagonist is calm right now, he claims that he doesn't know about it much, and he claims that she should be taking away the dragon this time as well. He claims that even though he doesn't know how she ended up making it happen, but she is the one who made it happen in the first place by working hard on her own to knock it out of the sky, so he would be quite upset if she ended up leaving it on the ground. The idea of killing a dragon starts to make her feel like she is losing her mind, and realizing that he is about to let her have some expensive dragon starts to make her feel like she is seeing some kind of messiah in front of her. She notices that he is not even mad that she ended up intruding on his space without his permission, which made him tell her to stay away for the time. After hearing her, he remembers that he was the one who told her to stop coming in and shouts at her once again, saying that she should keep herself away from his place, and she ends up getting silent. But in the end, he claims that it doesn't matter much to him as long as he is at home, adding that he cares about this place since it is the only thing that he has in the whole world, which gets Sakura to blush quite hard. Sakura instantly thanks him, and when the protagonist doesn't know why she is thanking him, she claims that she is quite relieved because of what he said. She claims that she doesn't have much magic for the time being, and she will have to return for the dragon once again tonight and hopes that she will be able to see him once again. As she runs away, the protagonist suggests to her not to bring another dragon with her once again, and she hopes that it is not about to happen again. Then, as the matter is settled, he instructs the golem to bring the dragon outside of the premises and thinks that it will be useful since the dragon will be attracting a lot of attention if it stays. Soon the protagonist and Sakura leave the area as he is quite hungry, and as Sakura makes pudding for him, he thinks of eating it and hopes that he will be able to take a nap soon enough. At night, when the princess comes again, she notices that the dragon is outside in the wild and realizes that they must have moved the dragon outside of their premises. But realizing that it is already late for her, she just focuses on taking the dragon and getting home. Then when she finally takes the dragon's corpse to the Prussia castle, she gets confronted by the Grand Master of the Magic Knights, and she decides to explain that she ended up attacking the dragon and it died in one shot. The idea of the dragon makes the Grand Master realize that it is an advanced one since he can just feel it by touching the scales, and they carry the magical entity from her on the charred scales. The man applauds her because she was able to defeat such a dragon on her own, and the princess explains how she was able to take the dragon with one hit, but she had help and claims that she was transferred magic power that far exceeds her own, which is the reason she was able to kill the dragon. The idea of the transfer magic, which is so advanced, shocks the man as the process surely takes a lot of time and preparation. She claims that she knows it, but the one who did it only had to touch her to make it happen. She thinks that the protagonist must be a super-class or even a myth-class magician, and no wonder how he was able to transfer that much by only touching her butt. Then the man claims that there must have been some news about the dormant Dragon King, who is now thinking of moving, which is stirring up quite some trouble for them. At the same time, one girl starts to be walking down the road of the forest and knows that there is a man who is now eating dragons. While the girl is walking down the road, she ends up coming in front of one of the apple trees of the protagonist's house, and at the same time, Sakura and the protagonist notice that some unknown girl is standing in front of their house. Then when the protagonist notices the girl, he notices how the intruders are coming into his area for a while, but he is quite glad that this intruder is kind of cute after all. When he gets close to the girl, she starts asking the protagonist if that is an apple that she can see, since she has never seen some golden apple. The protagonist claims that the apples might be golden, but they are an apple for sure, and the girl states that she had been seeing the same thing the whole way on her travel, and the idea of the girl living alone in the forest starts to make the protagonist feel like something is wrong with the world. The girl introduces herself as Hesty in front of him and claims that she is glad to meet him, and as soon as the protagonist touches her hand, her belly starts to grumble, which makes him realize that she must be hungry after all, as her stomach is making a sound. When she is asked, she states that she doesn't know if she is hungry or not, but her stomach is making a sound for sure. The idea of not being able to tell him if she is hungry or not makes the protagonist feel like she must be weird as hell. Then when the protagonist asks Sakura if she will be okay if she ends up eating one of the apples, she starts by measuring the magic power on her, which will be able to tell how much she needs to eat. But the idea of the child having that much of a magical aura starts to make Sakura to feel like she is seeing something wrong, because there is no way some child would carry that. Sakura claims that no matter how much magic power she has in her, It must be working on her, and one of the apples will be enough for her, even though she doesn't know how much a golden apple will be able to do her. When the protagonist hears that she has a lot of magic in her, he picks one of the apples and gives it to the girl, and as he ends up giving it to her, she ends up eating it. Then the moment she takes a bit of it, she starts to feel like she has never tasted something like this, and as soon as she finishes, she starts asking for more. The protagonist is surprised that she is that hungry for the moment, and seeing that Sakura is laughing and smiling after seeing her, he starts asking if she likes kids after all. She claims that she surely does, as she still remembers the time when he was a kid, as if there was no boring moment with him being inside the house. He thinks that it must be weird to talk to their own house, and the girl states that the apple was quite delicious and she is satisfied for the moment. Then as he starts petting her on the head, he claims that she surely knows some complicated words for a child. Then when it comes to their time to head back home, he starts asking Hesty what she wants to do, as she will be alone on her own. She once again thanks him for the fruit and thinks that it will be best for her to take her leave for now. The protagonist bids his farewell to her and states that they will surely meet each other later, and she thinks the same and starts walking in her direction. While the protagonist and Sakura continue to walk on their way, they think that the child must be quite strange, but the protagonist thinks that she must have been the most normal thing in the place where he resides right now. Then on the other hand, the girl named Hesty seems to be the Dragon King Hesty Raidona, and all of the dragons around her start to appear while bowing down to her. The dragon claims that he is quite satisfied that she was able to return to the dragon territory from the human territory. He ends up serving the clothes back to her as she has come back once again and will get into her normal clothing. The dragon praises her for the human disguise as if it was something perfect, and Hesty claims that he shouldn't sell himself short on the process, as they have tried their best to make it look as normal as possible. Then the dragon starts excusing himself, and he starts to ask her about the investigation that she had done on her own, and the idea of investigation starts to make her think. After thinking for a while, she adds that she thinks that she doesn't want to fight them at all, which is the truth. Then she claims that there is no way she is about to win against the opposition that the man is talking about, and there is no way she would want to burn down the whole place. She then states that the man that she had to meet is way stronger than she is, and at the same time, the apple of his orchard was quite delicious to begin with, and the dragon starts to confuse himself after hearing it. Then the dragon informs her, saying that many of the youthful dragons are ready to attack him anytime, and they want to do it even though they have seen his strength. Then after realizing that she will need to act up, she thinks of challenging the man, and in that way, she will be able to prove that the man is way out of their bounds. She claims that the fight will be for the survival of the dragon race, and she thinks that if she ends up winning, he will turn up dead, but if she ends up losing, the idiot dragons among them will stop trying to attack him. She claims that as their king, she will be fighting, and even if she ends up losing, they will have to honor her defeat and will have no way to complain about it at all. One morning, when Sakura is having fun alone in the room by doing funny stuff, the protagonist faces some kind of trouble as he starts noticing something strange in the backyard, so he decides to call her to his location. Sakura ends up getting from the bed as she is interrupted and runs to reach him. It seems that he is kind of worried that the garden is kind of damaged because of the attack led by the dragons. Even though he is trying to get on with repairing the garden, he is unable to do so because of the huge rock that is standing in front of him, and he thinks of sinking, and she starts agreeing with her flustered. But as she seems out of breath to him, he starts asking her about it, and she claims that it is because she had to run to reach him and nothing else. He thinks that she must be telling the truth, and he thinks that she must be saying it to him if the work is too hard for her. But she claims that she will be fine and thinks that they must proceed soon enough. Soon they both get on with working on it, and the protagonist once again touches her to merge their powers while starting the wood golems in the process. Soon enough the golems stand in their way as if they are ready to work, and the protagonist thinks that they must be quite small compared to the rock and thinks that he will be able to combine them, which will surely work in his way. He assumes that touching the golems with his hand will be enough to fuse them alone, and starts getting his hands inside of the golem and feels like they must be quite fluffy, as if he is holding some kind of clay inside of his hand. For the moment, Sakura realizes that the golem is following his movements, and he finds the whole thing kind of interesting. As he does another movement, the golem ends up following it again, and it seems that they are both syncing with each other. The idea of the golem copying his reaction makes him feel like he is seeing something cool in front of him and thinks of a great idea inside of his mind. He then starts to get the golems together at once, and the whole reaction makes Sakura see how he truly was in his childhood, as if she is able to see the child in front of her right now. After trying for a while, the protagonist turns himself into a golem as well, and the golem itself starts acting as a wood armor for him, which ends up making Sakura feel amazing. But he still thinks that the shape must be quite weird after all and thinks that it must be some kind of mech-like thing, knowing that he can act as the motor control of it. He then proceeds to work on the rock-picking thing and ends up easily picking up the rock while feeling that it is getting easy since the wood is acting as armor to him. Then soon they get on with the repair work as he is about to throw the rock aside, and the whole time Sakura continues to carry her usual smile at the same time. Then in the next scene, the protagonist ends up making up a new technology which he starts using to make his work easy, and it seems that he made some kind of new aircraft weapon with the trees. He ends up getting the branch stuck inside of the ground, and by payloading the tree, he fires the entity toward the target into the desired direction for the time. It seems that the introduction of the technique made it easier for picking up piles, and at the same time, he is able to now pick up anything on him as he is able to use the wood as armor on his own. He then continues to extend the field and installs the new traps at the same time and makes a remark saying that he is now getting used to making the traps for the enemies. Suddenly, Sakura seems quite tired, and she even begins to fall down on the ground for some reason. As soon as Sakura falls down on the ground, the protagonist comes around her to check up on her almost instantly. When he is looking at her, she claims that she is sorry and thinks that she must have used up too much of her magical power, which is making her faint. She states how she was having too much fun with him and used up too much without replenishing the energy. At the same time, she claims that she will be able to receive magic from the dragon vein, so she will be fine, and thinks that she will need to rest for a while now. At the same time, even the house starts to get wobbly, and she apologizes to the protagonist, claiming that she is the only reason why the house is now in that state. Then when he asks if there is some way to fix it, she thinks that the only way to fix it is by using his power to transfer to her, and he thinks that if his magic is about to heal her, he will do it anyways. Then when he starts asking her about it, she claims that the most efficient way to make it happen is by satisfying someone's desire, and he then starts to get curious about her desire. After hearing him accept her reasoning, she openly claims that if that is the situation, he will need to satisfy her sexual appetite, and the protagonist thinks that he is hearing her wrong for sure. He starts asking her to repeat the same thing once again, and she now explains it, saying that he will need to satisfy her libido. He then starts asking her if it can be fixed by eating or by sleeping some more, and she states that she hardly sleeps in the first place and food wouldn't be of use to fix her problems. Then he realizes that he has never even seen her sleep or eat and starts asking her if this is the only way she is able to replenish mana. She reveals the truth in front of him and adds that she has never been able to get this low in mana ever before, and he realizes that by masturbating she gets on with replenishing her energy. He then even apologizes to her because he is bringing up such a sensitive topic right now and focuses on the situation that making her desire come true will get her better. Then when she claims that it is the only way that is more efficient than resting, he takes her up on his arms and thinks that he will be able to do it. At that moment, the hero gets ready to fulfill the sexual desires of his house, and it might look even haughty as he is overflowing with ambition right now. Then as soon as the protagonist takes Sakura inside of the house, it already starts raining outside. As the house starts to leak the rainwater, he starts asking Sakura if she is ready as he gets her to lay on the bed, and she seems quite embarrassed as she keeps lying down. Then Sakura asks him once again if he is okay with this whole thing, and when the protagonist looks back, he notices that the cracks are appearing on the walls and the house is falling apart at the same time because of her weakness, meaning that she is quite weak right now. He once again asks her if everything will be okay when her mana is full, and she claims that she will be fine when she is full of spirit. But she doesn't know if her body will be suited for her, and she is embarrassed that she has to ask him to do it. At that moment, he claims that he has no problems doing it with her and states how much he likes her cuteness and personality. He thinks that he will continue to hate himself if he keeps on seeing her like that, since there is no way he would ever want to lose her from his side. Then he adds that if it is fine with her, he will always be supporting her, and after hearing that, she starts to sit and starts to cry, saying that it truly makes her happy that he will do that for her. She then adds that she had been thinking about him from the time he was born, and the picture of him as a kid starts appearing inside of her mind. But now both of them are sitting beside each other in the current situation, and the way of her thinking about him starts to get him to blush once again. Now he feels like he is embarrassing himself because he had been seeing her as a house this whole time, but now all he can see is that the real Sakura is now sitting in front of him. The idea of them finally being together rushes through his mind, and he keeps on holding her face and starts blushing while looking at each other. Soon enough, they meet each other in a passionate kiss, and as the sky starts to rain even more, undressed Sakura appears in front of him. Then as they begin engaging into an intimate relationship, she starts to cry finally and explains that she is shedding the tears of joy after a long time. Then as he finally starts to do it, she ends up finding herself in comfort. And in the end, the protagonist can be seen lying down on her lap as she continues to watch over him, adding that he will be the only person who will continue to live within her. Then in the morning when he wakes up, he finds that his house has a second story right now and Sakura appears behind him, adding that his magic was pouring into her, so she had to get pregnant. When he learns that she is pregnant, the idea of her growing another story doesn't make it much believable to him, and she claims that as she is the spirit of the house, her children will surely be the houses. She then explains how she ended up receiving excess magic from him and became oversaturated, and the excess ended up forming a new part of the building for him. Then he remarks that if he continues to add more magic inside her, she will continue to grow the house as well. Then both of them continue to look at the new addition to the house, and the protagonist notices that the addition is quite huge compared to the old one. Not only that, but also the house looks more furnished to him right now, and he starts praising Sakura for it. But she adds that there is nothing that she has done because all of the magical power came from him, as he is the one who supplied all of them. But when he gets back to the second floor, he feels most like home there and notices that there is now a small cabin in the woods, which was also made by his magical power. She thinks of renting the place, and he remarks that acting as a landlord would be great if he could find more people in this world. She claims that she wants him to keep on living on the second floor as she doesn't want him to leave him, and promises that he will never change his home in his life. It seems that Sakura was truly nervous that he was about to leave her and continue living in the newer fraction of the house, and when he adds what she would do if he was thinking about it, she claims that she would work hard to make the main house as much spacious as possible and however he wants it. Soon it gets time for them to have breakfast, and they get on their business as the protagonist makes her feel relieved that he is never about to give her up. Soon enough, 1 week later, the house ends up getting so huge that he ends up feeling like he is about to be lost inside of the forest. He remembers that for this whole week, he had been doing nothing but having intimate relations with Sakura, and he understands it will continue to happen if they keep on sleeping with each other. Just like that, the house continues to grow, and it doesn't make the protagonist feel bad, but he knows that he will have to think about doing something to the new floors. The house keeps on growing as the protagonist keeps on giving his magical power to Sakura over and over again through the weeks, and he realizes that if he wants to make it so high, he will need to consider the safety on the ground floor already. Sakura thinks that it will be potential, and they should start working as soon as possible. While they are thinking of creating protection around the house, the princess comes in to visit him and starts wondering if a dungeon has come out of nowhere in this direction where there used to be a house, and the protagonist notices that he came to visit him once again. Soon enough, Sakura comes in to introduce the newly made elevator to him, and she states that he should go ahead of her since she will have to pass time making dinner for him. He knows that the magical power that he wields is quite amazing, but as the house is now way larger than it was before, he will need to do some work on the second floor of the original house. He still needs to think about what he wants to do with the other 5 floors. Instantly, he comes down by the elevator and starts asking why she would have to feel that nervous, and she is kind of relaxed after seeing his face, making her realize that it was no dungeon after all. She states that she thought it wrong that she came to a whole different place, and he suggests that the recent days were kind of interesting for him as they had done some work until she was gone. It seems that the reason why she is here is because the public safety was improved, and she thinks that her task is becoming easier day by day. She is kind of proud that she was able to sleep after a long time, and the protagonist notices that there are some bags under her eyes, meaning that she doesn't sleep that well. The protagonist thinks that the girl portrays his version of what he was back in the real world, who would continue to work the whole night to meet the deadline, and she states that she has a real reason to come up to him. She presents 1,000,000 silver coins in front of him, even though he says that he doesn't need any more money from her, but she thinks that it is necessary for her to show gratitude to him because of his help. Not just about the dragon, but only because of the protagonist, the environment has been improving for a long time, including the crops and also the livestock in the town, which is why she thought of thanking him by giving some of the money. He thinks that she wouldn't let any of the debts go unpaid and realizes that he cannot really do anything other than accept her gift and starts calling the golem to take the money inside of the house. Just after hearing about the golems, the princess starts to get nervous, assuming that the past incident will repeat itself, and she is even more shocked now to see that our guy has a room full of golems only. As she is scared of the golems, she ends up asking if he is planning to invade her city, as the strength that the golems carry is kind of excessive compared to the amount that he needs to protect his house. When he thinks that an invasion must be an interesting topic, but he thinks that he will be fine without considering that, as he is already satisfied with just his house and the section of land that he has for his garden. His words end up giving some relief to her, as she was worried, and the protagonist claims that the golems are nothing but the apple trees. When she claims that she is kind of tired, he throws an apple in her direction for her to eat and again energy, which will profusely get her enough magic power. Noting that he ended up giving her such a gift, she thinks of another payment for him, but the protagonist thinks that it will be fine and they part their ways soon enough. At that moment, he thinks once again that he will need to do some things to increase the security of the lower floors, and with the help of Sakura, they get back to their old house once again. It seems that they have hidden their floors underground while they work as some kind of basement flooring. The idea of more people visiting them starts to get Sakura and him both excited, and at that same time, someone comes in their direction with some kind of motive, someone whom they have already met before in a different manner.